It was a busy couple of days in Niagara for Berklee College of Music professor Susan Rogers. She was at Brock University to speak to students in a lecture and a presentation later in the day, and also visited the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre. Susan, how did this link with Brock University come about?
I got an email a few years ago from Dr. Peter Berg, who is now the dean here of math and science at Brock. And he was a Prince fan, but he also was interested in some of the things that I'm interested in. And he invited me to come and speak. And I said, yes, of course. And he said, well, maybe you can talk to the neuroscience department, or maybe you can talk to the music department, and you could also talk to the general public. So I thought, well, that's kind of a tall order, but I'm up to it. So yeah, let's go, let's do this. And it turned out really, really well. I had a great time.
Peter, you say, was a fan of Prince, and you worked with Prince. What was it like working with such a musical genius?
Working with a very rare bird, and to use his own lyric from one of his songs, those kinds of cars don't pass you every day. Extremely fortunate that I had the chance to work with some folks who achieved this superstar status. Most folks who work in music don't necessarily get that. So I was working with him at the height of his popularity in the 80s, and I was a Prince fan when I joined him. So really I was living a dream came true. Later on, I worked with other superstars, Bare Naked Ladies and David Byrne and folks like that. And I got to say, Prince was one of a kind.
You have to have been one of the few female producers, engineers working in the business. There weren't a lot of you around. How did that come about? How did you get to those heights where you were working with the caliber of the people you were working with?
I got very lucky. When I was young, I knew I was crazy about music, and I wanted to sort of contribute to bringing music in the world. I was also self-aware enough to know that I'm no performer, I'm no songwriter, I'm not going to be on stage. That held no interest for me. But what I wanted to do was to help give birth to the music that I loved. So I studied on my own. I studied electronics and audio and began working as an audio technician in Hollywood, California, repairing professional audio equipment. It was through that channel that Prince found me, because in '83 he was looking for a technician. I mean, I was just like him. I was an odd bird. I was a female. You didn't see many women. And I was also someone who repaired the equipment, which is also more rare. These rare birds splashed around in the same pond for a little while. That got me started. And then from there, I was off to the races.
At what point did you take what you learned about sound and about sound creation to look at how this all works on our synapses with neuroscience and the science of listening? Because that's why you were here in Niagara, to talk to students about that aspect of your expertise.
You know, I think it's a calling. I don't know that every child experiences this, but I certainly experienced a little voice inside saying, you know, I think I'm this. I think I want this. And when I was young, what I wanted was to make records come alive. And as I got older, what I wanted was to see what it would be like to be a scientist. I imagined that I'd love it. So after Bare Naked Ladies, we had a big hit in 1998. I left the music business for good, and I earned an undergraduate degree and then my PhD at McGill University. And still, it's been 20 some odd years, I still love it with a deep passion. So I found that they're not that different. Auditory neuroscience and basic audio engineering. There's a lot of similarities there. I'm glad that I can bridge those two worlds for myself, at least, and hopefully for an audience.
Your most recent book, The Music of Listening, is available not just as a textbook that could be used somewhere like Berklee or Brock University. This is a good read that anybody can pick up and maybe learn a little bit about why they like what they like.
Yes, thank you for that. I wanted to pass the microphone, so to speak, to the music lover, the folks like my brothers and me who are non-musicians, and yet we feel this deep, personal, intimate connection to the music that we love. So I wrote a book for, not for the music makers, but for the music listeners, which is why it's called This Is What It Sounds Like. It's about the listener's experience and how personal and private and intimate that is.
Well, thank you for sharing some of your experience with us today. We sincerely hope that you come back and visit us in Niagara once again. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Michael. You wouldn't have to ask me twice. Thank you.